fish. Oily fish. White fish, on the other hand, like cod and haddock, which is a big favourite in the UK, they store their omega-3 in their livers. So usually during the fishing sort of process, you throw the liver a bit away, you eat the white fish. So maybe your intake isn't as high as it could be. And another interesting fact, if you like your tuna fish and you like canned tuna fish, then you may be not getting quite as many omega-3s as you think you are, because during the canning process, we actually, well, not we, but during the canning process, they extract, for some reason, the omega-3. So be a little bit wary about tinned tuna, for example, quite low in omega-3. Oily fish, now we have to sort of talk about what type of oily fish. So we have big oily fish like salmon, and then we have our little oily fish like anchovies and sardines. One of the issues that we have with fish is that living in the ocean, we've rather polluted our oceans. So some of our larger, longer living fish that's been swimming around in the ocean for some time and it's been eating all the other little fish accumulate a lot of these contaminants, and some of the really big fish can be a little bit unsafe to eat. So we have to be a bit careful with large oily fish. So if you're increasing your omega-3 intake and you're looking at your oily fish, go for things like sardines. So small, short-living fish, best sort.
Small, short-living fish. That's one piece of advice for today, for sure. We'll also talk about fat. I mean, we talked about fat making you fat earlier, but that was in the context of carbohydrates. But things like butter and margarine.
Yes.
How does that work in terms of?
Yes, I mean. Butter, for some reason, many years ago, started getting a bit of a bad name, and we bought in the margarines, and that we had this sort of idea that they were much healthier for us. And to make, basically, margarine is a form of vegetable fat. Most vegetable fats, like corn oil, olive oil, tend to be liquid at room temperature, and it's very difficult to spread that on your bread or on your whatever you want to spread it on. And so to make it solid, you sort of chemically modify it, and those chemical modifications actually don't make it that safe to eat. We've improved margarine, but butter is definitely the way to go. It's a much healthier type of fat, actually. Yes, especially if it's butter that's come from kind of grass-fed, organic sort of cattle is the best sort. The other interesting thing about margarine is that it's actually very rich in omega-6 fatty acids. Now, I've talked about omega-3. It's quite interesting, or it's quite important to talk about omega-6. So
what does that translate to, again, in a non-scientific sense?
Right. Yeah. This is another type of fatty acid, or type of fat, and it's similar to our omega-3s, but it has the opposite function within the body. And in its simplest term, we can sort of say, we can talk about omega-6 as being quite inflammatory. They're quite inflammatory fats. Omega-3, on the other hand, are anti-inflammatory. And so the balance within the body will sort of dictate whether you're sort of very inflamed or sort of lesser inflamed. And our sort of hunter-gatherer ancestors, if you like, lived on a very balanced diet of omega-6 to omega-3. And since the introduction of agriculture, where we started eating a lot more grains, lots of products rich in omega-6, we started to see an imbalance. So we actually have a lot of omega-6 in our diet, not so much of our beneficial heart and brain beneficial omega-3s. And we're starting to see, because of this imbalance, we're starting to see a lot of issues with our health. Anything through, as I've sort of spoken about, cardiovascular issues, but issues with sort of mental health disorders, children's developmental disorders. These can all be linked to some extent to too many omega-6 in our diet, not enough omega-3. So the sort of simple advice here is to just watch the kind of fat you're eating. So not so much on the corn oil, not so much on the vegetable oils. Butter is very good, butter. Coconut oil. Coconut oil is a completely different type of fat, and it's a good substitute for your sort of poorer quality fats, if you like.
Okay, well, that puts one debate to rest. At least some of you will sleep well tonight. Another question that we have is, obviously we're very blessed in Sri Lanka to be able to have access to lots of fresh product, and you know, we tend to still, you know, cook all 3 meals at home and so on, and buy or take. We have less, you know, of a culture of going out and taking out food. But in terms of processed food, and that is something that we seem to be getting into slowly, and including more processed food in our diet. How does that affect someone's nutrition? I mean, obviously we know that there are certain negative aspects perhaps, but maybe if you can elaborate on it.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with a lot of the sort of food processing and refining methods, as I've sort of touched on, is that it's kind of stripping away the sort of essential nutrients that we would need, our bodies need. And, you know, if we start depleting various sort of essential vitamins and minerals, essential fats, some essential proteins as well. I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody about sausages the other day, and we eat a lot of sausages, but if you look at the kind of quality of something like a processed sausage compared to the sort of the original meat that it's come from, they're two very different sort of areas. So with sausages, they're the sort of less quality cuts of meat, so the amount of or the type of protein that you're getting in there, and protein is really important for making things like chemicals within the body that affect the way our brains function, so they're called neurotransmitters. A lot of sort of mood modulating neurotransmitters that help children to focus and function properly. And if we strip those away from our sort of processed products, or from our good products, and we're sort of replacing our good products with processed products, then we're actually sort of affecting everything within the body, the sort of cellular, the molecular level, and we're sort of, you know, we can't concentrate, we can't function particularly well. We're sort of seeing increased rates of depression, as I was sort of mentioning. So sort of steering away maybe from your processed foods, steering away from refined foods, and sort of going back to basics. So it's like lean meats, nice bit of fish a couple of times a week, like the fish, leafy green vegetables, nice whole grains, and if you know, rice, sort of, you know, not white rice, red rice, and lots of fruit and veg, and that really is a sort of nice balanced diet, so nice and fresh. And when it comes to kids, getting kids involved at a very early age to get them to understand the sort of health benefits of sort of good food, good variety of food as well, lots of little bits to choose from, rather than sort of overwhelming children with sort of, when I was growing up, it was like you got a plate of carrots and you had your meat and you had your potato, and it gets a little boring. So variety, colour is really important. Vegetables, for example, I mean, I've seen your marketplaces, and there's oranges and yellows and there's greens and there's reds, and all of those different colours are different colours for a reason. It's the composition, it's the nutrient composition within them that is making them so beautiful and attractive to eat. So if you get a good variety, a little bit of everything, then you're getting different nutrients from different vegetables and different fruits, for example. So yes, lots of fruit and vegetables, whole grains, lean meat, nice fish.
And we have access to all of that all the time. Another question that there's constant debate on is a vegetarian diet versus and of course, I mean, here in Sri Lanka we do have a fair amount of people who would stay away from having meat. So how does because again, a lot of debate on whether that is a better way to eat or whether it's not. I know you're a big fan of fish, because we've heard them.
Oh, absolutely.
But what's your take on a vegetarian diet? And if you are a vegetarian, what should you be really looking at?
Vegetarians, they do need to look at things like proteins, where they're getting proteins from. The difference between vegetarian sourced proteins and meat sourced proteins is the type of building blocks that you're getting. Your protein is made of lots of building blocks. You take those in, and they form like a little pool in your body that your body then takes from to make sort of other types of product within the body. In order for vegetarians to get good quality protein, they need a good source of things like legumes, pulses. So they need to sort of mix and match to make sure that they're getting all the building blocks within their diets. Meat products tend to have everything in there. All the essential proteins that we need tend to be in one place. So vegetarians need to be a little bit more diverse in their choices. Vegetarian diets are incredibly healthy. They have been incredibly healthy for a long time. And it's usually about what you're excluding from your diet rather than what you're including. But I do have to say that vegetarian diets themselves, they've changed quite a lot in the last only in maybe the last few years, 5 years, 10 years. And we're seeing a lot of the very healthy vegetarian options. So your green leafy vegetables, your pulses, being slightly replaced by a lot of processed foods. I'm going to keep banging on about the processed foods. Processed refined foods are actually sort of coming in and taking away some of the health benefits that are associated with vegetarian diets. The other thing about vegetarian diets is your intake of omega-6 is quite high and your intake of omega-3 is a little low. So you need to sort of balance that out a little bit again. So watch your vegetarian oils, your vegetable oils, sorry. So avoiding your corn oils, for example.
And substituting that for something else.
Flaxseed oil. Mm-hmm. Flaxseed oil is a really, really good source of omega-3. And seeds as well is another sort of source of omega-3 as well. Walnuts, I don't know, do you get walnuts in here? Nuts and seeds?
Nuts and seeds, only in the form of things like peanuts and cashew nuts, I think, mostly, but not as many walnuts and chestnuts.
Peanuts aren't technically a nut because they grow underground, or the other way.
Yes.
Yeah. So vegetarian diets do have a lot of health sort of qualities about them, but sort of be careful a little bit about your choices. Stay away from the processed and the refined.
Okay. One more question before we go in for a quick break, and that is about dairy products. Again, a little bit of debate. These are the things that people would usually have questions about when we're talking about nutrition.
Yeah.
Dairy products, how what should your intake be for someone who doesn't take in, a glass of milk a day like they would, regularly advertise and tell you that you should be having. What's good for you and what's not? And can someone who doesn't like dairy or doesn't want to take in dairy still be healthy?
Yes, the answer is yes. Dairy is a wonderful source of vitamins, calcium, sorry. That's our sort of biggest thing that we're getting from our dairy. It's also a good source of beneficial fats, a good source of protein as well. So, there's a big mix of nutrients within our dairy. So butter, cheese, very good source of protein. If you're avoiding dairy, then it's possible to get those nutrients from other sources. So calcium, for example, rich green leafy vegetables, for example, is a good one. If you're
fish.
A meat eater, and fish, oh yes, the fish.
We like fish a lot on the show today, evidently.
Yeah. Actually, fish is one of the most nutrient-rich packages. The type of protein that's in there, it provides the building blocks for all these neurotransmitters, these chemicals that we have in our bodies that make us function. It's rich in things like vitamins and minerals. Selenium is another rich one, and then we've got our beneficial fatty acids. So yes.
You should do the campaign for fish.
Yes.
Eat fish. But so dairy products, if someone basically doesn't necessarily like dairy products, you can stay away from it, but still find supplements to make sure that you're
not... absolutely. There are supplements you can take, and you can, a lot of the sort of ingredients or the composition of dairy products can be found in other areas, so vegetables and fruits and things. So.
All right, we have a few more questions to ask you, but all of that just after this quick break.